Chapter 2, Part 2 of the Wish Books. Dear Madam, this acknowledges your recent order. There appears to be a misunderstanding. We do not stock any of the articles you mention. Is it possible you have consulted an obsolete catalog? We're sending you our latest edition under separate cover and enclose our check herewith for $26.97. According to our older employees, the goods you ordered were quoted in our catalogs of approximately the McKinley era. As we have occasional calls for these old volumes for libraries, universities, and motion picture studios, and our own files were destroyed in the Clark Street fire of 1904, we are willing to pay liberally for such historic relics. In exchange for your present catalog, we shall be pleased to credit you with $3, and we offer a reasonable sum depending upon the age and condition for any other old issues in your possession, assuring you of our eager desire to serve. The Chicago Mail Order Corporation. $3 for that old book, exclaimed Uncle Bide. Why, Corey, there's more of them things in Peeler's tumble down haymow, maybe a dozen. I'll fotch an armful in first thing tomorrow. Some of the books were under a ton of rotted hay, and there were many more than he'd remembered, with cover pictures of plump-armed goddesses spilling cornucopias of Turkish couches, banjos, and 3-bottle breakfast casters. They ran back to the World's Fair of 1893. And there, under some plain covers that reached to the day of the Philadelphia Centennial and the high-wheeled bicycle. Bide promised to tote them to Marionborough and express them off as soon as he got a hog brine down and his apples in. The new wish book arrived. It was a gorgeous book, and it made Corey's head whirl. Polo coats and checkered velour knickers and coal scuttle hats and pajamas and elastic girdles. The world had moved several notches. Not that those things fitted in Corey's usings, but there was a tilt-up bed with a coil spring mattress which Uncle Bide, as soon as he'd taken in the details, grew almost church reverent over, and a chair on wheels that the sitter could propel by a push of her own hands. Only the holler didn't have much in the way of paths to run it on, and a walking machine made of lightweight tubing. So Corey studied the new book and licked her stumpy pencil. Once more, folks dropped in aplenty to give advice. They tracked Ma Beckett's sand-scrubbed floor, and they helped wear out the pages. It was a lengthy business, consuming most of the summer and fall, but Corey finally got to the end of it. Not knowing what the old books would bring exactly, she made her order list a little bulgy and marked the extra or maybe things with question marks. Bide filled a bushel basket with the books that the Peelers had abandoned and struck off for Marionborough. Corey waved goodbye with a special wave to the wish books she had cherished all her girlhood. She lay back to wait. It was the Toller boy, Kyle, who spread the word that Corey's grand return tote of mail was in sight, because for what else would a wagon be jouncing up mud on the Coal Mountain Road from Marionborough? Most holler letters, and they weren't many, came by saddlebag. It was the tidings the neighbors had been waiting for. They set aside fishpole and heaved aside hoe and tracked for the Beckett house, beaming their pleasure at Corey's luck and eager to see her new bed and new walking machine. They said their howdies and squeezed into the neat clapboard house, bringing tang of glen and hilltop, of clover field and cow yard. Ellie and John were there too. They came straight down off old Dad Knob the minute John, whose eyesights were sharp, spied all that motion around the Beckett house. Kyle Toller came in breathless and wanted to know, since Corey couldn't go to the store, could the postmaster borrow Bide's mule for the last leg of the delivery. Corey was sitting up. She never had looked so pretty or excited. She had on a sugar-sack nightgown that smelled of sun and ironing, and she had thrust a spray of rose geranium in her hair. "Here they come," reported Beach Trevitt from the fork of the quince tree by the gate. The official party was advancing, sure enough. Bide had washed his mule and put a circle of yellow witch hazel blossoms around its neck. Amos Toller strode at Bide's elbow, and his beard blew wide. He had his split-tail coat on, the one he'd once helped nominate Teddy Roosevelt in. The mule slipped and slid down the leaves. He wasn't loaded near as lofty as folks had expected. The pile on him was nothing like what a wheelchair and a wove spring bed would make. There was only a pair of barrels atop him. When Grandsir saw those stained oak barrels, he yelped some. They were his barrels for sprout and chop in when he was blockade liquor-minded. But Amos said, "Hush your fuff, Nathan," and beckoned to Felt Annabelle and other strongbacks to help Bide fetch the barrels into Corey's little room. Corey looked as pleased as a robin with a 6-inch worm. Amos, drawing his whiskers into 2 banners, launched himself a speech. "Corinda Beckett," he pronounced, like he was addressing the multitudes from the step of the Capitol at Washington. "In the name of the United States government, whose representative I am in these parts, and in joyful defiance of postal rules and regulations, I hereby declare the Cat Track Hollow Post Office open for business in this room. Corey, your mail order has arrived." "I'm sorry to be so much trouble," said Corey. "Bide, lift off the barrel heads." They came right off. Amos thrust a hand down. He brought out a package, small and square. "This here matter, postmarked Chicago, has been entrusted for conveyance and delivery to Miss Levicia Vasey. Levicy, you in the room? Come forward and be identified," exclaimed Levicy. "Who in the holler doesn't know me, but who in Chicago does?" Amos fished again. "Windy Bill Vasey." "I serve my time," shouted Uncle Bill. "If it's papers, I ain't here." "Nathan Beckett." Grandsir's jaw dropped, the way it did whenever Amos flung a ringer and knocked off his 2 leaners. "I won't accept service," said the senior Beckett. "I don't make a drop, and what's more, I age it half a year, swooshing it in a limber tree on a windy hill. And how many men in this country are that keerful? Or if it's for dynamite and a few fish I'm being persecuted, I don't hold with that law neither. Miss Astor Tidney. Catch her, boys. Astor, honey. Shove right under that old roarer's legs." By this time, Levicia Vasey, after inspecting all 6 sides of her flat parcel, smelling it, shaking it, and listening to it, had slid the string off. She prized up one corner of the wrapping and squealed. Astor Tidney, who was 9, wasn't making a sound. She couldn't. Miss Deborah Coronet, a young lady of Miss Astor's age, wriggled through and halted, unbelieving. "Here you are, Debbie, sweetheart. Take it away and see if you can find your tongue when Astor does. Lee McLeese!" The floor became littered with torn paper. It lay like leaves of fall, and it reached out to the side porch. People were in a stir, and cries were shrill. Among them were Lark Beckett's, Corey and Ellie's mother. She had been handed a real big parcel with her name on it, and in it were Persian lace patterned dress material, a roll of camisole lace, 6 pairs of black stockings, and 12 china dishes. Levicia Vasey stood rigid, dumbfoundment and rapture on her plain face, and a tiny nainsook bloomer combination with elastic knees and lace bodice top scrunched out of sight in her hands. Astor and Flax and Alyssum and Myrtle Tidney and Debbie and Katie Joe and Vernice and Orna Cornet hugged dolls so tightly that they almost mashed the living squeaks out of them. Aunt Effie Tidney stood regarding a baby peach tree that had come in a pasteboard tube, and Aunt Zelda Pulaski had 5 or 6 paper packets with pictures on them of the prettiest sweet peas, violets, spice pinks, and candy tufts that ever snuggled a fence. And still old Amos plunged arm into the barrel and brought packets out. A reel of baby dress flouncing for Aunt Poppy McLeese, a skinning knife for Kyle Toller, a sequin-covered beanie for Silver Moon Annabelle, an ankle brace for Granny Height, an ocarina for Arabette Annabelle, who could charm the sow bugs out of a stump with his jug tootling, but had never got over an early fall on his head. And there was more, much more. A hearing tube for Uncle Tom Swisher, who was always cross because he never knew what folks were saying. A bright little silver bead necklace for Kedron Hardy, who'd never had anything pretty in her born days. A family medicine case for Aunt Aretha Racy that was all set for colic, colds, burns, pleurisy, nervous troubles, and pimples. A bottle of something new, vitamin pills, for Aunt Belle Gunderson up on her mountain. Belle was too huge and ailing to make the long trudge down, but somebody would take it to her. A baseball for Beach Trevitt and a bat for Norv Cornet. An ivory comb and brush for Travis Swisher, and a pair of sparkling side combs for Esther Pulaski. For Uncle Bide, there was nothing but an envelope with a bill of lading, but the lading notice was for a 3-horsepower gasoline engine waiting for him up at the Marionborough Freight Depot. a 10-power 13-inch telescope for John Lee, and a set of carving chisels. For Ellie, who'd tramped through the rain and over mountains to the fair to start all this, a red wool flannel jacket, whipcord knickers, 2 pairs of thick gray stockings, and a folding knife with 4 blades. For others, there were paint boxes, mouth organs, hair clips. There were turkey bells, team bells, dehorning clippers, hog ringing tools, ox horn balls, and hoof trimmers. For Postmaster Toller, there was a porch thermometer and a cold weather cap. 61 packages in all, including one for Bide's mule. He got a sweat pad. Bust my bones, breathed Grandsir, standing in his new Storm King rubber boots and heisting and lowering his double-barrel blue steel hammerless shotgun and rubbing his hand over the steel stock. There was still another package for Grandsir. It contained a warm woolen union suit. Horse high, pig tight, and bull strong, admired Amos when Grandsir broke it out and held it up. Pa Hardy kept staring at his corn planter. Stated Amos, straightening. The bottom of the barrels have a rove. Cried Mrs. Beckett. But, Corey, there's nothing for you. Oh, yes, there is, said Corey, her cheeks bright as rhododendrons. I have the new wish book. Every time she'd open it, the memory of this day would return. Uncle Bide whispered, Pick out anything you want in that book, Corey. Just about any darn thing, so it's wood or iron or feathers or leather. I bet I can make it. I'll start right in with a tilt-up bed and next with a chair on wheels. I'll turn out every man in the holler to see there's a good wide path brushed out for it. We'll shove a path clear to Toller's store, won't we, folks? The hell-beatenest path in the whole dang country, swore Grandsir, for the hell-beatenest girl. The pain hadn't come on, thought Corey blissfully. It was nearly nightfall, but the pain hadn't come on as it usually did at this hour. It was perhaps never going to again. If it did, she would bury her nose in the new wish book. There must be at least 10,000 pictures in it and 600 close-packed pages to read and read.